Welcome to WineWire, everyone, and welcome to the place where you can find wines you can only find in stores. My name is Adam, and we have a very special winemaker guest with us, all the way from Chianti, Frank Benincasa from the winery Lanciola.
Thank you very much.
Not bad, eh?
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Frank, the winery, the wine itself, Lanciola, has been in production, well, it's really been in sort of producing grapes since the late 1400s.
Exactly.
But the modern incarnation of the winery is really only around for how long?
Since the late 1960s, by the Guarnieri family. They've been producing wine in a traditional way. What they're doing is they're trying to maintain the traditions that were handed down to them from the 14th century from the noble family Ricci. Ricci means hedgehogs, and it's a little symbol, the coat of arms that you will find on each bottle.
That's very cool. You know, a lot of the times we see a lot of times in Italy that you have two paths. You have what the producers are trying to sort of take a modernist approach.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you know, the traditional approach to making wine is something that A, produces fantastic wine, and B, should be preserved. And I love to hear the fact that, you know, that Lanciola is taking that direction.
Well, it's always been in the family, and the thing is that we are now going back to more of back to the basics, more of a traditional style where indigenous grapes are being reevaluated and accentuated in their I think in their deliciousness, because if you actually taste this wine, you will actually get the dust of Chianti, you know, as you walk along the vineyards, and you actually get the feeling of being in Florence with this wine.
That's amazing. Actually, just to place this winery in context geographically, it is from Chianti, but it is actually from a sub-region of Chianti.
Exactly.
Col di Fiorentino.
Right, Col di Fiorentino, which means Florentine Hills. We are actually 5 kilometers away from the historical center of Florence. So we are in the Impruneta area. We're only a couple of wineries producing the Colli Fiorentini, so I think this
So
is a special added value.
There's something very special there. Well, that's a perfect segue. Why don't we? I'm going to let you introduce the wines. You know them very well. So let's get right at it, because I'm ready to taste. So here we go.
So this is our Chianti Colli Fiorentini. It's a DOCG, of course. DOCG means that there is a consortium that is actually giving us rules and regulations, and we have to abide by that in order to have this label on the neck. This is a 90% Sangiovese, and 10% we're using complementary grapes in order to just maintain that the softness of a Sangiovese. The Sangiovese grape tends to be a bit rugged, a bit astringent. So what we're doing with that 10% is trying to soften it up a bit and make it just user-friendly.
So but you're using indigenous Italian grapes.
We are using indigenous Italian grapes.
So to round out the Chianti.
Exactly. The usual grapes that are used for the Chianti is Canaiolo and Colorino. Colorino, the name says it per se. Colorino adds a bit of color. Canaiolo tends to soften up the wine a bit. So the typical characteristic of the Sangiovese grape is going to be that ruggedness, that cleansing sensation on the palate. And that's the characteristic that we want to maintain. We don't want to denaturalize the wine in any way, but we want to make it just a bit smoother so that more people can appreciate it.
Well, the nose is, to my mind, Casa Chianti has a really bright sour cherry note, which you know, from a kind of a traditionalist perspective,
right,
has to be there in
exactly.
order to be Chianti.
It is the personality of the Sangiovese to have that cherry. You also get notes of the violet flower, which is also typical. In this case, being that it's been 6 months in the big cask, we use the 32 hectoliter casks for this.
So the mass of the boat.
Exactly, la botte grande. It's going to give it that extra note of spices that you're getting from the wine. So you're getting slight notes of cinnamon, and there's also the macchia mediterranea, which is the flora, the Mediterranean flora. So all these herbs that you get, rosemary, thyme, sage, and those are all in the notes. But they're very subtle. They're very elegant.
Well, you know, from the palate, you have all those classic Chianti notes, but you also have a certain wildness to it as well.
Exactly.
And not in an unkempt or a bad way, but there's a certain rustic quality to it, which really speaks to the fact this is a wine made in a very traditional style.
Exactly.
You know?
It is. If you think about it, this wine, Sangiovese dates back to the Etruscan time, and in those days they didn't have any wine bars or restaurants, so they needed something that would accompany their food, which is wild boar, pheasant, deer. So they needed something that would cleanse the palate, and that's where the ruggedness comes from, and that's what we want to maintain.
That's amazing. This wine is available at WineWire. It is $18.22 per bottle. Obviously, we're very excited to have it. But I'm very, very excited to try the next one. This is something very different. We've never put a Vincenzo on at WineWire, and this is our first one. So why don't we talk a little bit about Vincenzo? And people may not know exactly what Vincenzo is or how it's made or that sort of thing. So I'd love you to sort of speak a little bit about that as well.
Vincenzo is a traditional dessert wine, although I prefer to probably pair it with more of an antipasto with more hors d'oeuvres. And the reason is, and you'll notice this from the nose, you have notes of walnuts, of chestnuts, honey. These are all notes that would go really well with cheese, with an excellent foie gras. So this could actually be an antipasto wine, if you will. It's made with Trebbiano and Malvasia, which are local grapes again. We age the Vincenzo for 5 years at least, okay? And what's happening is, when we harvest these grapes, it's a normal harvest, we let them dry out for 4 to 5 months. So this means that the water in each grape is actually evaporating, and there's
so it's a much more condensed.
There's a lot
thicker,
more sugar,
absolutely.
a lot more polyphenols in this in each grape. So when we press it, clearly it's concentrated, and this is how we get that apparently sweet notes, but on the mouth, on the palate, it's actually fresh, dry, very persistent.
This is not a cloying wine. There's a lot of sugar, a lot of sweetness in it. But if you've never tried a Vincenzo, it is a sensation and experience that really should not be missed. It's very different than ice wine. It's very different than Sauterne. It's uniquely Italian. It's uniquely from
uniquely
Tuscan.
Tuscan. It's
Exactly.
uniquely Tuscan. If you think about it, Vincenzo means holy wine, which was actually used back in those days by the priests when they did their celebration, the mass.
Listen, priests know how to party.
Exactly, right, and they still do.
They definitely still do. This Vincenzo is available at WineWire as well. It is just over $56 a bottle. It comes in 500 milliliters and 6 packs. It is an exceptional product, and I highly recommend that you give this wine a try. It is going to be something that you can serve at a party, both as I said, with dessert as well as with cheeses.
Exactly.
And it is extremely versatile. And if you have never tried a sort of sweet dessert wine before, this is a great place to start. Really, is there anything else that we missed? You gave a great description of the winery, a great description of the wines.
The only thing that I think is important to remember is when purchasing Tuscan wines, in ours, in this case particular, these are wines that need to be paired with food. They're not aperitif wines. They could be, but in a medium-bodied wine like the Colli Fiorentini, you just want to get greasy food, and that's going to cleanse the palate. It's going to activate, your taste buds, and it's just going to make the experience much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. And then WineWire, our biggest philosophy is that wine is an experience, not just a juice in a bottle. It has to be shared with friends, shared with food, and that's how you're going to get the most out of it.
I'll toast to that.
Right on. All right. Guys, follow us on Facebook and Twitter as usual. Our Facebook page is Facebook/WineWire. Our Twitter handle is @WineWire.ca. Frank, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
Thank you
It
for
was a
having
pleasure.
me.
Got to taste some amazing wines. We'll be back in a couple of days with a brand new episode of WineWire TV. Until then, stay thirsty and stay drinking.